Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Rose.
And I'm Noah. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Whether you're listening while driving, doing laundry, walking somewhere, pretending to work, or actually working, we're happy you're here.
Especially if you're listening while avoiding something you're supposed to be doing.
Oh, straight to the point today.
Not intentionally, but now that you mention it, I feel like a surprising number of people are probably listening to this episode instead of answering an email.
Or finishing an assignment, or cleaning their room, or making a phone call they've been avoiding for 3 weeks.
3 weeks? Very specific.
I know people.
You mean yourself.
Maybe.
Honestly, that's actually a perfect way into today's topic, because today we're talking about something almost everybody has said at some point. 3 simple words. I'll do it tomorrow.
The most confident lie many of us tell ourselves.
It's funny because when we say it, we usually believe it. We're not trying to lie. We're genuinely convinced that tomorrow will somehow be different. Tomorrow will have more energy, more motivation, more focus, more confidence, more discipline.
Tomorrow feels like a magical place. Everything gets done tomorrow.
Exactly. The weird thing is that procrastination isn't really about laziness. People talk about it like it is, but the older I get, the less I believe that.
Same, because some of the biggest procrastinators I know are also some of the hardest working people I know. They're not lazy. They're exhausted. They're overwhelmed. They're scared. They're putting pressure on themselves. Sometimes they're perfectionists. Sometimes they're carrying things emotionally that nobody else can see.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this topic interesting. On the surface, it looks like a productivity problem. But underneath it, it feels a lot more human than that.
Definitely. Because when people say, "I'll do it tomorrow," they're often talking about much more than a task. Sometimes they're postponing discomfort. Sometimes they're postponing uncertainty. Sometimes they're postponing disappointment.
That's interesting, because when we think about procrastination, we usually picture someone avoiding work. But people procrastinate all kinds of things, not just work.
Absolutely. People procrastinate difficult conversations. They procrastinate doctor appointments. They procrastinate making decisions. They procrastinate applying for jobs. They procrastinate chasing dreams.
Sometimes people procrastinate happiness.
That's true.
I know that sounds dramatic, but think about how often people say things like, I'll start enjoying life after this stressful period. I'll take care of myself later. I'll rest later. I'll be happy when things calm down. And then months pass, years pass. Life keeps moving.
That's one of the strange things about tomorrow. Tomorrow always feels available, until suddenly you realize a lot of tomorrows have already gone by.
And I don't think people notice that happening, not at first, because procrastination usually doesn't feel dangerous. It feels harmless. It feels small. It's just one day, just one more day, just one more week.
And sometimes delaying something genuinely is fine. Not every delay is a problem. Sometimes you need rest. Sometimes you need time. Sometimes forcing yourself isn't helpful.
Exactly. I think that's an important distinction because whenever people talk about procrastination, it becomes this moral issue. Like you're either productive or you're failing. And real life isn't that simple.
Not at all. Sometimes I'll do it tomorrow is actually wisdom. Sometimes you're tired. Sometimes you're sick. Sometimes your brain needs space.
But other times, there's something deeper happening.
Yeah, and that's where things get interesting. Because if we're honest, a lot of procrastination comes from emotion, not logic.
I think that's why productivity advice sometimes feels frustrating, because it treats procrastination like a scheduling problem, when for many people, it's an emotional problem.
Right. Let's say someone keeps avoiding sending an application. The issue might not be time management. The issue might be fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of finding out what happens if they actually try.
That's interesting. I was thinking about that recently. Sometimes not trying feels safer than trying and failing.
Absolutely. If you never submit the application, you never have to face rejection. If you never start the project, Nobody can judge it. If you never put yourself out there, nobody can tell you no.
It's strange because procrastination can almost become protection.
Exactly. Temporary protection. The problem is that protection often comes with a cost,
Because the fear doesn't disappear, it just waits.
and usually grows.
That's true. I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but whenever I avoid something, I rarely feel relieved. Maybe for a few minutes, maybe for a few hours. But then it starts following me around.
Like background noise.
Exactly. It's sitting there while you're watching a movie. It's sitting there while you're eating dinner. It's sitting there when you're trying to relax. You know the thing still exists.
And then the task becomes bigger in your head than it actually is.
So much bigger.
I think we've all experienced that moment. You avoid something for 2 weeks, then finally do it, and it takes 7 minutes.
The classic human experience.
And afterward, you're sitting there thinking, wait, that's it? That's what I've been stressed about?
I've done that so many times, and somehow I never learn.
None of us do, because the task usually isn't the real issue. The emotion is.
You know what I find fascinating? Sometimes we procrastinate things we actually want.
That's a good point.
People assume procrastination only happens with unpleasant tasks, but sometimes people delay things they're excited about. Creative projects, dreams, goals, things they genuinely care about.
I think that's because the more something matters, the scarier it can become.
Exactly. If you don't care, failure doesn't hurt as much. But if you care deeply, failure feels personal.
Or at least it feels personal.
Yeah. Imagine someone who has wanted to write a book for years. The dream is exciting, but starting means facing the possibility that the book won't match the version they've imagined.
And as long as the book exists only in their head, it's perfect.
That's such a painful truth. The imagined version is perfect. The real version will be messy.
Everything real is messy.
Life would be a lot easier if someone had told me that earlier.
People tell us, we just don't believe them.
Fair.
I think a lot of procrastination comes from wanting certainty before action, and certainty rarely arrives.
Can you explain that?
Sure, a lot of people think they'll start when they feel ready, but ready is often an imaginary state. You think one day you'll wake up and suddenly know exactly what to do. You'll feel confident, focused, prepared, fearless.
The perfect Tuesday.
Exactly. The legendary perfect Tuesday. But most meaningful things happen before we feel ready.
That's true. People start businesses before they're ready. People move to new cities before they're ready. People fall in love before they're ready. People become parents before they're ready.
Most of life happens while we're figuring things out.
I think that's one reason procrastination can be so frustrating. Part of us knows we're waiting for a feeling that may never arrive.
Yeah, we're waiting for future us to become some upgraded version of ourselves.
Future me is incredible. Future me drinks enough water, answers emails immediately, exercises regularly, keeps her apartment clean, never overthinks anything.
Future you sounds exhausting.
She really does.
But that's another interesting thing. Sometimes procrastination comes from unrealistic expectations. We imagine that tomorrow will suddenly become a different person.
Instead of the same person with the same brain and the same challenges.
Exactly. Tomorrow arrives, and surprisingly, you're still you.
A shocking discovery every single day.
Every day.
I also think guilt plays a huge role. The longer we delay something, the more guilt we feel. And then the guilt makes it harder to start.
That's such a vicious cycle.
It really is, because eventually you're not just avoiding the task, you're avoiding the feelings attached to the task, the guilt, the shame, the frustration, the self-criticism.
And then every time you think about it, your brain immediately connects it with negative emotions.
Exactly. It's no longer just an email. It's an email plus 2 weeks of guilt.
Which makes the email feel 10 times heavier.
I think that's why people can become surprisingly hard on themselves about procrastination. They start seeing it as evidence that something is wrong with them.
Yeah. Instead of saying, I'm struggling with this task, they start saying, I'm the kind of person who can't get things done.
And those are very different statements.
Very different. One describes a situation, the other becomes an identity.
That's such an important distinction because everybody procrastinates. Literally everybody.
Even the people who seem organized. Even the people who look productive online. Even the people who have color-coded calendars.
Especially the color-coded calendar people.
Probably.
I think social media has also made procrastination feel lonelier because you constantly see evidence of other people's achievements, people launching projects, getting promotions, traveling, building businesses, doing impressive things.
Meanwhile, you're staring at a task you've been avoiding for 6 days.
Exactly. And then you start comparing your behind-the-scenes experience to everyone else's highlight reel.
Comparison adds another layer, because now you're not only worried about the task, you're worried about where you stand compared to everyone else.
And that's exhausting.
It is. I think many people quietly carry the fear that they're falling behind.
Yeah, that fear shows up everywhere, not just in careers, in life, relationships, goals, dreams, everything.
And when people feel behind, procrastination can actually increase, because pressure increases.
That's interesting. Why do you think that happens?
Because pressure can make things feel bigger. Let's say you're already feeling behind. Now every task starts carrying extra meaning. It's not just an application, it's proof of whether you're catching up. It's not just a project, it's proof of whether you're succeeding.
So every action starts feeling like a judgment.
Exactly. And when something feels like a judgment, it's harder to approach calmly.
That makes so much sense. I think sometimes people don't realize how much fear is hiding underneath everyday behavior.
Yeah, fear doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes fear looks like scrolling for 2 hours.
Ouch.
Sometimes fear looks like cleaning your kitchen instead of doing the thing you're supposed to do.
Productive procrastination, my favorite kind.
The sneaky version.
Because technically you're doing something.
Just not the thing.
Exactly. And somehow organizing a drawer suddenly feels incredibly urgent.
The drawer absolutely cannot wait.
National emergency.
Immediate attention required.
But jokes aside, I think everyone understands that feeling, because avoidance often disguises itself as productivity.
That's true. And I think modern life makes that easier than ever. There's always something else to do. Always something else to click. Always another distraction available.
Sometimes I wonder if we're overwhelmed by options.
Maybe.
Because years ago, procrastination looked different. Now you can spend an entire evening switching between apps, videos, messages, articles, and somehow never feel rested afterward.
That's because distraction and rest aren't the same thing.
Wow, that's a simple sentence, but it's true.
A lot of people think they're resting when they're actually just escaping.
And escaping can feel good for a little while.
Of course. We're human. Nobody wants to feel stressed all the time.
I think that's another reason I don't like harsh conversations about procrastination, because sometimes people are genuinely overwhelmed. They're not avoiding life because they don't care. They're avoiding life because they care so much.
That's a really important point. Sometimes procrastination isn't the absence of caring. It's the presence of too much caring.
Too much pressure, too much expectation, too much fear.
Exactly.
You know what else I think is connected to this? Perfectionism.
Definitely. Those two are close friends.
Very close friends. Because perfectionism sounds productive, but often it leads to doing nothing.
Because if the standard is perfection, starting becomes terrifying.
And finishing becomes impossible.
Exactly. People think perfectionism creates action. Often, it creates hesitation.
I spent years thinking perfectionism was helping me, but a lot of the time it was just making me afraid to be seen trying.
That's interesting.
Because if something wasn't perfect, I felt embarrassed. And eventually I realized perfection wasn't the goal. Protection was.
Protection from criticism?
Yeah, criticism, failure, judgment, looking foolish, all of it.
I think many people can relate to that.
Probably, because being human is weird. We want growth, but we also want safety. We want adventure, but we also want certainty. We want change, but we also want familiarity.
And those desires often pull in opposite directions.
Exactly. So sometimes procrastination is what happens when those forces collide.
That's a good way to put it.
One part of you wants to move forward, another part wants to stay safe, and then you end up frozen in the middle.
Not because you're weak, just because you're human.
I think a lot of listeners needed to hear that.
Maybe, because people are often much kinder to others than they are to themselves.
Always. If your friend was struggling to start something, you'd probably be understanding. You'd ask how they're feeling. You'd wonder what's making it difficult.
And when it's ourselves, we jump straight to criticism.
Immediately.
It's strange. Compassion feels obvious when it's someone else, complicated when it's us.
Do you think self-compassion can sometimes be misunderstood?
Definitely. Some people think being compassionate with yourself means letting yourself off the hook. But I don't think that's what it means.
What do you think it means?
I think it means being honest without being cruel, acknowledging the struggle without turning it into a character flaw.
I like that. Honest without being cruel.
Because cruelty rarely helps. Most people already know they're procrastinating. They don't need more shame.
That's true. They're already carrying enough of it.
Exactly.
I keep thinking about how many things in life start with tiny moments, tiny decisions, tiny actions, tiny beginnings. And yet, our minds often treat beginnings as enormous.
Beginnings are emotional.
Yeah, because beginnings contain uncertainty. You don't know how things will turn out.
And humans generally prefer knowing.
We really do.
But uncertainty is part of every meaningful experience. There's no way around it.
I think that's one of the hardest lessons.
Probably.
Not just with procrastination, with life. You rarely get guarantees.
No, you get possibilities,
And that's scary.
but it's also beautiful.
That's true. Because if everything were guaranteed, nothing would feel meaningful.
Exactly.
You know, when I think about the phrase, I'll do it tomorrow, I realize it's often connected to hope. Because people believe tomorrow can be better. Tomorrow can be easier. Tomorrow can feel different. There's something strangely hopeful about that.
I never thought about it that way.
It's misguided sometimes, but it's still hope.
That's interesting. Maybe procrastination isn't only fear. Maybe it's fear mixed with hope.
Yeah, hope that future us will somehow handle things more easily.
Even though future us keeps asking why present us left everything until the last minute.
Future us is always disappointed.
Very disappointed.
Poor future us.
Poor future us.
But maybe one comforting realization is that everyone is negotiating with their future self. Everyone.
I think so too. Nobody has everything figured out. Nobody moves through life with perfect consistency. Nobody wakes up every day feeling motivated.
And honestly, that's kind of comforting.
It is, because sometimes we imagine everyone else is operating smoothly while we're secretly struggling.
When in reality, most people are figuring things out as they go.
Exactly.
As we're getting toward the end of this conversation, I keep coming back to one thought. Sometimes what people need isn't more pressure. It's more understanding.
I agree. Sometimes the question isn't, why am I so lazy? Sometimes the better question is, what am I afraid of?
Or what feels heavy right now?
Or, what am I carrying that nobody else can see?
Those questions feel gentler.
And often more accurate.
Because underneath so many struggles, there's a human being trying their best. Maybe imperfectly, maybe inconsistently, maybe with a lot of doubts, but still trying.
That's true.
And if you're listening to this while avoiding something, which statistically is probably at least a few people,
Probably many people.
just know you're not the only one. You're really not.
Not even close.
There's something comforting about remembering that. The things we struggle with often feel uniquely ours, but usually they're shared by millions of people.
Including the two people hosting this podcast.
Absolutely.
We're not sitting here as people who've mastered anything. We're just people who have also looked at a task and thought, I'll deal with that tomorrow.
Many times.
Many, many times.
And maybe that's why this topic matters, because it's not really about productivity. It's about being human. It's about fear, hope, pressure, expectation, self-worth, uncertainty. All those things wrapped inside 3 simple words.
I'll do it tomorrow.
Exactly.
You know what? I think tomorrow gets blamed for a lot.
That's true. Tomorrow didn't do anything.
Tomorrow is innocent.
Completely innocent.
Poor tomorrow.
Poor tomorrow.
But seriously, I hope anyone listening feels a little lighter after this conversation. Not because we've solved anything, but because sometimes understanding ourselves feels better than judging ourselves.
I like that. And sometimes being understood is enough to help us breathe a little easier.
Definitely.
Thank you for spending this time with us today. Whether you listened while working, relaxing, walking, cleaning, or procrastinating, we're glad you were here.
And wherever you are right now, take care of yourself.
We'll talk to you again soon.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.